I'm feeling scared today because Tom is sitting next to me on the couch, and I'm not sure we've ever sat next to each other during the podcast.
That is a scary prospect.
So I'm not inspired. I'm scared. I hope we can make it through.
Can you be both?
Depends. Will you stop blocking my light?
I have a way I like to sit, and why is the light behind me? I've set up to fail.
Well, let's start with community questions. So, Tom, you got one? Why don't you hit us with
I do have one.
Okay.
All right. A question from the community. Do you... Okay.
Nice.
It's written wrongly. Do you do much work with contractors or freelancers on your projects? Can you talk about working respectfully and productively with other artists and creatives that you bring into your projects?
Okay, so this is pretty big, right? Because a lot of the times, through Vindication specifically, how many artists did you wrangle?
From an illustrator standpoint,
Yes.
like more than 20.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that we do in practice. So what's the secret to doing that properly?
Lots of ideas here.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the former contractor and freelance
Yeah,
artist
that's a great
sitting
point.
right next to you.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe Mark should go first, and then I can.
Okay.
All right. Well, so before there was an Orange Nebula, there was an agency, a graphic design agency that we've run for a long time. And so we did a lot. We've done for decades a lot of work with contractors. And what you learn working with creatives is, well, there's a number of things, but one of the most important things, when the question was posed as respectfully, that was an interesting way that was phrased, I think, to me. A lot of people try to bring in people to get something done, and they micromanage. And I think that's a huge mistake with creatives. I think creatives want to feel like they have their creative spark or their flair put into it. A writer needs to use their words. An illustrator needs to bring it to life the way that they would, while still being directed with the project the way that it needs to go. And I think that's a really important part of it. I also think it's important to pay them immediately and pay them fairly. Don't make excuses. Don't try to do too much trade with them. Just pay them like they're a professional, or get your business together to the point at which you can actually do that. That's probably in a nutshell some of the things I've learned that are the most important.
Yeah, I think I found with Blue Blaze's stuff that, well, and also with some Orange Nebula stuff, that people are so used to being micromanaged that they kind of expect it, and they come into the situation sometimes almost like, if you've been a freelancer or a contractor long enough, like ground down to where you're just like, tell me what to do, I'm here to do the work. And because they've got some other outlet for their own creativity, I'm a writer and I do my fun writing over here, but this is just work writing, and I'm going to do what you tell me you want. And I've noticed something that we've had to do over the years is convince freelancers and contractors that we actually want them to express themselves in the work. No, just bring yourself to this, own part of it, be a part of what we're making, feel ownership over this project that we're doing. And I think that is something that has really benefited our work with freelance people, is letting them know that we do respect their voice, and we are hiring them because we want that voice, not because we want them to perfectly execute our voice. And I think a lot of people don't. I think a lot of contractors, not all of them, but a lot of them want to express themselves, but forget that when they're doing freelance work.
There's another piece of it too, and I think a lot of times a contractor will view it like, look, if I have to do too much interpretation that's the wrong thing, I'm not going to make any money doing this. So I need you to outline specifically what you want so that I can give you what you want. And I think we have to untrain that at times too. But for a moment, let's turn this into the Krista podcast special, because I want to talk a little bit about why Krista's here and what was so impressive to her from a contract perspective. We generally, when we hire contractors, we do that for a period of time, and so that we can just kind of see what it would be like to bring them on, even if we have an opening. And with Krista, we worked for a long time, and she would always ask for clarity. She would always ask for what we wanted. She was very interested in the details and wanted as much of that as she could get, but also would do her own research and come up with ideas and thoughts that were not provided to her, and just ask, does this fit? How does this work? And the toggle between the two of wanting to kind of make sure that the project was handled appropriately, and am I headed in the right direction, felt really good. But also the fact that you would just do your own research and be like, okay, here's all the thoughts and bizarre weird concepts that I came up with for this, and I tried to do them fairly quickly so that we could choose a direction. Felt like a really good business decision too. So like, you protected the time. And so that's one of the things that we really appreciate about Krista. There's others as well, but
Yeah, I'm thinking back to that first project that we worked on, or that I worked on for Orange Nebula, which was the World Box. And I remember meeting, I had done like some little, small freelance stuff before, and then this was the first big project. And I remember you describing like what each of the needs were. Like, you described what loot was versus relics and companions and things like that. And then you were like, go. And that was so exciting because I had like this framework to build off of, like learning. That was my first introduction to the game. And then I was able to like take my own thoughts and creations and put it into that framework. And it was really exciting to build that, even as just a brand new contractor.
You've worked with so many contractors before for art and illustrations, but chose to make the leap to bring Krista on as an employee and have her internal and be able to really harness her energy. So what pushed that choice and that decision to kind of switch from curating mini contractors to bringing Krista in as an employee?
Krista, we will not talk about you. I think that one of the key differentiators for us with Krista was that, there are a lot of amazing artists that we have worked with over the years who bring great creativity and make amazing art. But Krista brings an additional layer to that, where she brings like this creative mindset and thinking and aura to everything that she does. Like, her research is amazing, and just having Krista in the room and the way she talks about things and how like unabashedly herself she is all the time, like, changed. We noticed that when she was involved in meetings, it changed the meeting. And that's not true of a lot of contractors who just kind of want to do the work, even if they want to express themselves in it. Like, they don't express themselves in this large way that affects the whole project like the way Krista did instantly. And, there are other conversations that we can have that have nothing to do with what she does professionally. Like, we're going to talk about, social media or designing the layout of the kitchen or anything. And Krista always brings a very cool, helpful perspective that is like, how do we not just have her in all our meetings? Was Mark and I had those discussions.
1000%.
It's like, Krista's in all these Vindication meetings. I want Krista in every meeting. Like, I want her here for budget planning because she thinks weird. And
And budget planning is scary.
now I'm really scared. Yeah, the thing I appreciate too about that approach is, regardless of how much direction you get, you're still always thinking about what it could be, and not just, oh, I have that exactly in my mind, what you want, and here it is. It's more like, okay, but here's that thing you asked for, but what if we did the little tweak thing over here? Or what if we did this, and that became a little kind of endearing part of this? And I appreciate that. And what that tells me is that the artist or the creative is protecting something about their own work. And I have just worked with so many contractors in the past that just want to get paid, and they just want to do this, and they're not passionate about it, and they're like, I just got to keep the lights on. It's really hard to feel like your project is being caretaken, if that's a word, well, if that's the motivation, is just purely survival. I want it to be something that the creative wants to put in their portfolio and is proud of. And we try to give a lot of leeway and a lot of slack for that so that they feel good about it too.
I'm going to get off track here for a second, but now I'm just on liking Krista. And this isn't going to be completely accurate, but it's close enough. Like, early on, like, there was the type of thing that Krista would do is we would say, like, this is sort of a forest creature. And Krista would like come back with this sketchbook, and she's like, well, I went to the forest and I like dissected ferns, and here's a bunch of sketches of that, and here's all these, like, I found a pile of beetles. And I drew all of them, and then I kind of like put the ripped open fern and drew that on the beetle's back, and then I'll like, and like she just goes and does all this like hands-on inspiration in the world that most people wouldn't do. I mean, you want to say you're going to do that, like that's the dream version of doing your creative job, but most people don't. They just sit down and they draw a forest creature, and then it looks like every other forest creature. And yeah, very cool.
I'm so glad that you like that, because that's like, it's such a driving passion for me, is to like really be in the place and really like feel the depth of it, feel like the meaning of it and the resonance with me, and then I feel like I can bring that out in the artwork.
It's awesome. It works.
I imagine projects like a balloon. Okay, let's say we've got a mostly blown up balloon.
I have a question before you continue.
What?
Before 10 seconds ago, is this how you imagined projects, or did you just come up with this right now?
I just came up with it.
Okay,
right
go
now.
ahead.
I imagine a project like a balloon. Okay, it's a mostly blown up balloon, and the people involved in the project are inside of it, just kind of bouncing around. But there's Krista on the edge, and she's like pushing the balloon,
So
right? Yeah, her face, her hand. You can see like her whole presence, just like pushing the balloon outward. So
It's
that
like Ace Ventura and the Rhino.
so that so that the project has detail and depth, and it's stretched to its fullest. That's what I think that's what a really good artist does.
And then it pops, and everybody tumbles down into the bark dust.
Everyone falls to their death because of Krista.
And it's all my fault. Yes,
Yeah.
this is how I imagine every situation ending.
Way to stretch the balloon.
I'm sorry.
I think to close this out, I want to circle back to the question,
Okay.
which to me reads like someone who, in our context, is probably working on a board game, and they don't have any experience working with artists, and they're wanting to find artists to work on their game. And what I would say is, you're talking about human beings that are good at their craft, and so talk to them like people. You can calm down. Like, the professional creative world is still just creative people that are people. So each artist that you talk to is going to have a different threshold for how much guidance they want, how much freedom they want. And what I would recommend, and you would hopefully agree, is, talk to that person, get to know them a little bit, feel them out, figure out where they're going to be comfortable, and then from that point, try to just draw them out a little bit more.
Yeah, ask yourself what makes it worth it for them.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they want to do this aside from money, right? And I can tell you most creatives are much more interested in the work than they are in the money. The money is the byproduct that they want to get paid for their craft, but they're much more interested in doing what they love.
But don't stress it. There's not like a system of rules to this where, the artist that you're talking to has had the exact same pro experience with everyone that's ever hired them, and now you look like an amateur idiot. That's not even remotely the way that this works.
The only other thing that I think is a solid piece of advice that I've heard y'all talk about before is just like leaning into a really good creative brief. If you have a nice standard creative brief that you can share, it keeps you from having variability in the description that you give to the artist based on your mood and what you've eaten today, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a nice solid creative brief that really doesn't change unless it has to over time, then that is just a better way to communicate the style of what you're looking for than trying to use your words each time you're talking to a new contractor.
And this goes for contractors of all types, right? This isn't just for illustrators. This is for anyone in the creative industry, and even beyond that, even a project manager. Try to bring out that person in the works. It's not just the role that you and the responsibility that you need handled. It's how will this person add some of themselves to that and nourish that and encourage that so that they can feel part of what you're doing and not like they're working for you, that they're working with you.
Yeah, it's all good. And it's all Gucci.
Okay.
Ready for content, ready for gold.
We need to find a way to get Justin mic during these things. Like, I want him saying things like that in the background during the show.
Are you hearing it?
Yeah, he's the producer off the corner that's just saying like
don't block Lacey's light, maybe.
or just like, we're all Gucci, we're all gold. Just like